Welcome to Franchise Flicks. My name is Ted, and joining me are my co-hosts, Andy and Zach. On this podcast, we task ourselves with watching movie franchises, breaking them down, and reviewing them, including franchises we've seen and loved, as well as franchises we've never seen and frankly avoided. Today we're talking about the Bill and Ted Trilogy, the series in which two man-children who only know how to play air guitar are the only thing holding together the fabric of space and time. This series includes 1989's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, 1991's Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and 2020's Bill and Ted Face the Music. So on this podcast, as always, we like to start off with our personal experience with whatever franchise we're talking about. So I'm going to ask Andy to take it away with his experience with Bill and Ted.
These movies bring me back to a time and place that I thought I had forgotten about. I did forget about a lot of things, but I also remembered a lot of things, and it was the remembering part that I really didn't enjoy. The first one, remember it completely differently in a lot of ways, but there are some good things to it. The second one, there were a lot of things I forgot about, and I'm glad I did because it brought back childhood trauma memories of nightmares with specific scenes from it. And then the third one, I was genuinely shocked by how much I liked it, how often I chuckled at things, and how it redeemed what had happened in the last movie and kind of the cultural tone of what it says throughout it. There are a lot of things that would be very offensive if done today, lines that if would be said, it was kind of shocking to hear. So I couldn't believe that this somehow out at the very end, 30 years later, right?
25 years.
25 years later that this thing would actually be kind of good. I liked it. I don't know if it's good, but I liked it. So yeah, that's my my experience. Childhood trauma and then general present surprise. How about you, Zach? What's your experience?
I really only saw the first one, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I didn't watch the second one. I don't remember watching it at all as a kid or ever since. And the third one, obviously, that just came out last year, so that was, and it was not on my radar as something to watch immediately. So it was fun to actually revisit this trilogy, or really the trilogy for the first time was a fun ride for me. But I love Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, super fun movie. I do remember a lot of it as watching it as a kid, and then as a teenage stoner. That was a big movie in my repertoire at that point too. So it was funny to revisit that and kind of see as an adult and maybe as a woke adult how shocking some of the content within that movie was. It was a little risque even for that time, but yeah, I mean, not a whole lot of experience going into it, and I probably won't revisit it ever again after this, but it was a fun ride. What about you, Ted?
Yeah. I don't remember much about the second one, but I definitely saw the first one. I might have seen the second one, but I knew about death, but not much of it that I can recall. The first one I've always enjoyed, but even watching it this time around, I caught more jokes and more adult humor than I ever did before, because it's been a long time since I watched that movie. And the second one, like I said, I don't even remember if I had ever seen it, but I recently watched the new one, and I had a great time with it, and it made me want to go back and revisit these. And yeah, it's not the best series ever, but it's a fun one, and it does what it sets out to do, and just have a fun time. Be excellent to each other. Party on, dudes.
Be excellent to each other.
Hell yeah. Well, with our experience out of the way, let's get into the plots, the synopses of these movies. Who wants to go with the first one here?
I'll take it away, Ted.
All right.
Ted Theodore Elioff.
That's a reason I wanted to watch these too. That's something that gravitated me toward this, because there were a lot of loser-ass Teds in cinema and media. I do have to say, and Ted Theodore Logan's one of the better ones.
Okay, I was gonna say where does Ted Theodore Logan fall? I'm glad he's on the right side of history then. So in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, William Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Theodore Logan are the faces of the band Wild Stallions. Unfortunately, they're the only members and are both way better at air guitar than they are with real guitars. They're not much better at school either, as their teacher tells them that they need to ace their oral history report if they don't want to flunk most heinously. To make matters worse, Ted's dad said he'll send him to a military academy if he fails. Enter Rufus, a time traveler from the future who is tasked to help Bill and Ted ace their report so the future results in glorious future influenced by the music of Wild Stallions. He then lends them his time machine that's shaped like a phone booth. Which, if you don't know, is a box that people used to walk in, pay money to use a corded phone in. Much like Doctor Who. Very, very, very good reference there. As they travel through time, gathering historical figures that are the subject of their report, like Napoleon, Socrates, Genghis Khan, Billy the Kid, Abe Lincoln, Sigmund Freud, and Joan of Arc. After some time, travel hijinks, a ton of air guitar solos, falling in love with some historical babes, and breaking their historical figures out of jail, Bill and Ted barely make it to their school in time for the presentation. The historical dudes help the duo ace their presentation to uproarious applause, and they depart in their time machine. And afterwards, Bill and Ted are disappointed as they think nothing has changed for them. Then Rufus appears again, bringing the princesses they met with him, and tells them that their music will bring about world peace, align the universe, and is excellent for dancing. The princesses join Wild Stallions. Rufus gives the guys brand new guitars. Breakout jam session.
Hell yeah!
What a great way to end the movie. I also, we'll get into it, but I love how bad the jam session is. It's so perfect.
Oh yeah, to the point where Rufus has to say they get better.
Right, it's so perfect.
Yeah, I do have to correct your pronunciation of something. It's Socrates. Thank you.
Socrates. I'm sorry. Yes,
Socrates.
Socrates.
Come on. All right. Well, I'm gonna take away Bogus Journey here. So it's 2061, and an evil dickhead named Denomalous wants to change the past so the future is never influenced by the excellent riffs of the Wild Stallions. He and his henchmen begin their time travel terror plot by attacking a class Rufus is teaching at Bill and Ted University, which I'd love to go to, where he unleashes his evil Bill and Ted robots who are tasked with killing our heroes and replacing them in the present. Meanwhile, in present day, Bill and Ted still suck at guitar and desperately want to win the Battle of the Bands. Soon after proposing to the princesses, marriage that is, they get a call from what sounds like the princesses, but is really the evil Bill and Ted, saying that they're leaving them. Then they're met by the evil robots, who say they're going to help them. Instead of helping them, they obviously kill Bill and Ted. Death arrives to bring them to hell, but their ghosts escape after giving Death the most excellent wedgie. After failing to get help from the cops, they find Ted's stepmom, Missy, which is a fun thread throughout these movies. We'll get into that. I love the whole Missy thing. Who's holding a seance to try to get her help, but this goes horribly wrong when Missy banishes them to hell. Once they're in hell, they find out that the only way to escape is to beat Death in a contest. Death ends up being a sore loser, and after losing multiple games, he finally gives in. He agrees to take them to heaven to get them somebody who can build something to combat the evil androids. Help comes in the form of a pair of sentient Martian ass cheeks named Station. The Martians then fuse together for some reason to become a much bigger ass cheek monster who builds them good Bill and Ted robots to combat the evil ones. Before evil Bill and Ted can sabotage the battle of the band's performance and change the future, Bill and Ted confront them, and their good robots kick their asses. Then Denomalus arrives to finish the job, but they defeat him after a back-and-forth battle of their future selves, leaving items that will help them in the present, and Death finishes him off with a wedgie. After using time travel to become amazing at playing guitar, they return with beards and daughters and absolutely shred in front of the entire world, with Death and the good robots joining the band. I mean, the endings of these movies are just epic. Every single time. It's amazing.
Yeah. I'm gonna jump in and correct your pronunciation of something.
Oh,
it's
sure.
not Wedgie. It's Melvin's.
Melvin.
Yeah, I know. I put Wedgie in there just... I don't know if everybody remembers them being called Melvins in this movie.
Was that like a 90s thing where they called
no
Melvins?
fucking clue. I'm like, what is
I've
this
never,
right now? Yeah.
never heard that before.
Yeah, somebody's got to tell me if that was an actual thing or if that's just a Bill and Ted thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what? I was going to talk about this later, but I think it's a good time to bring this up. There's something about these movies that capture West Coast, specifically Southern California, that we will just never understand. We won't.
Very
we
true.
didn't grow up here. This is something we can't. It's a different world to us, and they're their own thing. And these movies are a reflection of that society over there. So
That's fair.
That's a very good point. Us Yankees won't ever get it.
we won't. We won't. I try. Oh, I like LA, but yeah. All right.
Well, why don't we talk about Face the Music?
Face the Music, the final act in the, what are we calling this? Is it just like the Bill and Ted franchise? Does it have a name?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
The Bill and Tediverse. All right, so here we go. Face the Music. It's 2020 and things have not gone as expected for Bill and Ted. Wild Stallions broke up. They never wrote the song to align the universe, and their current gig is playing the wedding of Ted's brother Deacon and Missy, who, if we just remember, used to be married to Bill's dad, followed by Ted's dad. Weird love triangle relationship going on there. Okay, so while at couples counseling, the princesses tell them that they're not sure if they can continue to watch them fail to fulfill their destiny. While they're at their lowest, they're met by Rufus's daughter, Kelly, who brings them to the great ones in the future. There, they are told that they need to write the universe-aligning song that night, or space and time will collapse in on themselves. Bill and Ted decide that instead of writing the song, they should go to the future to get the song from their future selves, a tactic they've used in the previous movies. After they steal Rufus's old time machine, they travel to different points in time, hoping they'll find the version of Bill and Ted who's written the song. Meanwhile, their daughters, Thea and Billy, how do you say that? Thea?
I think it's Thea.
Thea? Okay. Yeah, it's like, because her name's like Theodora. They got like these long ass names that they're just like, mimicking the names of their dads,
right.
Which I love.
Yeah.
Little Bill, Little Ted. Attempt to help them by using Kelly's time machine to cobble together history's greatest band with the likes of Jimi Hendrix, Louis Armstrong, Mozart, Ling Loon, Grom, and Kid Cudi. The greatest musician of all time, Kid Cudi.
I mean, he's a historical figure at the end of this.
A historical figure at this point.
Absolutely.
Yes. So Bill and Ted have no luck in finding the song after dealing with different versions of themselves who play open mics, break into Dave Grohl's house, which was awesome, and are in prison. They're then met by an assassin robot sent by the Great Ones, thinking it may be the only way to fix the problem. The robot reveals that he accidentally killed their daughters and the band they assembled. They get the robot to kill all three of them in a very, very messed up way too. They're transported to hell. Once again, we're back in hell, where they find the girls in the band and decide that they need to convince Death to help them get back to Earth. And part of that is to convince Death to come back to the band.
Yep.
They have had bad blood over the band's breakup, but eventually make up and escape to Earth. With little time left, they realize that they were never meant to write the song, and their daughters were. While Thea and Billy organize the band, Bill and Ted and the princesses distribute instruments to the infinite people in infinite realities because we forgot that our voice is also an instrument. The universe aligns, time and space are saved, and everyone in the multiverse takes part in the greatest jam session of all time, even though no one in the audience played a single instrument if you watched the scene.
I think
So
there
there
was
we
one
go.
guy playing a guitar, I remember. One guy with a
Is he?
mohawk.
Okay, so the one guy, probably the only guy who actually knew how to play guitar and happened to get the instrument in his hand.
Well, yeah, he's got a mohawk. Of course he knows.
See
how
the
to play
same guy that was in the jail in the first one with
Probably.
the mohawk.
Oh, maybe. Maybe.
I bet that was him.
That'd be a deep cut.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because this movie was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the discussion portion here, boys. Let's start talking about the characters here. I would say acting, but I mean, let's be real. As great as Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter are, this isn't their best performance ever. But they do a great job as Bill and Ted, who are basically the same character, who are in love with each other too. So we've got Bill and
bros.
Ted. They're just bros. They're from SoCal, and
I would say.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I only want to say this because I think that Keanu and Alex were better in the first two than they were in the third one.
Ooh, okay.
could not get behind old ass Keanu Reeves. He just looked awful compared to the other movies that he's in, and he talked like he couldn't get that accent back. He still was talking like, you're breathtaking, like that Keanu Reeves. The modern Keanu Reeves is just so far removed from Ted that I didn't buy him at all, and that was a big reason why I didn't like that third movie as much.
So I agree with that take with Ted, but Bill, I think it's a great character.
Alex
I
Winter
think
is a little better.
Alex,
I can get behind
he
that.
looks like an aged Alex Winter, or a aged Bill would, throughout the timeline. I think all of his future selves are funny, and the things that he's doing, because he's kind of like the real antagonist, and then Ted's kind of like the guy that almost backs him up in a lot of ways. Big little situation, but they're reversed in sizes. So I like that part of it. So I'd say yes, but give him credit in this third film for giving us the character again and crushing it, I think.
Yeah,
I would agree. Alex Winter was definitely better than Keanu Reeves in the third one, but I still just their characters were just I don't know, a little too far removed for me.
Yeah, I agree mostly with Andy here, but that's also agreeing with you on Keanu in this case, and I think his voice got significantly deeper. It is hard to re-grasp that accent. I think for Alex Winter, he naturally has had close to that voice his entire life, and it looked like he was trying a little hard to kind of recapture that. That being said, though, it also kind of came off to me too as a guy who's technically a dad still trying to grasp onto his youth too. So I could kind of get behind it from that sense as well.
Sure.
Just they're man children, and they'll never really grow up. They'll never move beyond wanting to be in the band and fulfill their destiny and all of that. And it seemed more to me, at least, that it was just him never letting that go ever. Despite his body moving past that almost,
Yeah. Well, and to the movie's point, they're destined not to ever move past that.
Right. Which is actually a nice, not even twist, but I guess a nice resolution to it. That they're technically the reason, kind of like in Star Wars. Let's go to a Star Wars reference here.
Always.
Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker, is supposed to bring about balance. Does he do it on his own? Not necessarily. He does it through his son.
Yep.
Through the progeny. Hell yeah.
And his son passes that on to a new generation too. So think about this is the conclusion of this trilogy with these characters. The third movie gave them a lot of character development, and we'll talk about them as they come up likely. But these two in particular, like it contributes to a message. You know, think about the old rocker dudes who are Bill and Ted's age right now. You know, they're watching this movie and they're seeing like, yeah, I remember back in the day when I was in the band and everything and reminiscing. And sometimes you got to give up the band and let your kids take over. You know, they now get the garage to jam out in, not you anymore. You get to be the cool dad now. Move on to that phase in your life. So like embrace it now and like know that you'll always be the rocker. And that's like I love that post-credit scene at the end of the third one, where it's them jamming out in the nursing home together, like saying, yeah, we still got it.
Yeah.
Like they gave a message to the people who probably grew up, or not grew up, but you know, were the teens, high school, college age kids in the late 80s, early 90s who are now their age, and like the Gen Xers or late millennials looking at what life is for them now.
Can I jump in here and ask like what that cutoff age is? Because I'm like, I feel a little attacked at this point.
We're like millennial on the right in the towards the end of millennials actually, because it ends about 95, 96. So these would be people who, if they're in high school, when does the first movie come out?
89.
89. So assuming they're like 18 years old in high school, it means they were born in 1971.
Okay, so like, I'm still a rocker.
Yeah, we're still rockers. We're not in that.
Yeah.
You're Zach. You're still a rocker. You're not in that phase yet.
Okay.
These are
all
like
right.
these people. You don't have a. How old are the kids in this movie? They're like, they're in like a late high school, college
17,
time
18,
frame.
yeah.
20-something, early 20-something, I would say.
Yeah, but they're so you're not at that stage. You have a young child.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Good. As long as I can still, jam out.
And you know
But
what
these
the
are like our
difference
parents.
is, though? The difference between you and kind of sad people like that, and that's not to attack them, because I think cling to whatever you want to, because I cling to a bunch of shit that I liked when I was a kid and I still like today as an adult, and there's nothing wrong with it. But you're not clinging to that hair you had in high school. You know what I'm saying?
You want to know what though?
Whoa.
You want to know what
know.
though?
I kind of brought this up as a joke too.
Oh my dude, I can't even tell you how similar I look to Keanu Reeves in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure in 2009.
I saw that in our
Yeah.
notes, and I'm like, what do you mean right now?
Dude, I meant to bring up a picture so that I could like show it to the audience. My hair was the same. I literally wore a vest.
Dude, that was one of your like a Facebook profile picture, man.
Yeah, I never knew 2009 Zach, so I'm really curious.
It was Ted Theodore Logan. I mean, that's who I was in 2009.
Andrew, you looking it up on your phone? You're just gonna hold
100%, 100%.
This is also
I don't know how
quality
well
streaming here, by the way, too. Is just
Oh,
looking
very.
something up on your phone, holding it up to your webcam.
Right. Well, that's why I said I was going to, but
Yeah.
Andy's gonna take the initiative and actually do it.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, so I mean, the Bill and Ted, like those characters, I guess we can get kind of back into the character discussion while Andy's looking up my profile picture from 2008.
Zach, it's such a low quality picture that you have for it too, because it's back
that's
in
the
like
best.
2000. This is like I think 8. Yeah, it's
the
the
iPhone 1 picture.
yeah, like,
Of course it is. It's probably expanded too big, and you can
2009.
see the pixels.
That's the problem. Like I go to zoom in and he's okay. We're just gonna I'll get in.
Boom.
Oh hell
It's
yeah!
him. It's Keanu Reeves. Like
It's Keanu Reeves.
you could just do like a quick flash. Like, dude, why are you checking out Keanu Reeves on your phone? Like,
No,
I'm not.
that's exactly
Zach.
it too. You're wearing the white T-shirt under the black vest. That's incredible.
I'm telling you,
Man,
that was my first band photo
that's
shoot.
incredible. Anybody listening to audio needs to go to our YouTube channel when this is dropped and just skip to what are we at? We're at 24:30. A couple seconds before that, and you're good to go. You get to see a wonderful picture of Zach.
You get Zach Russo from 10, 20 or 10, 15 years ago. That was
What can you
good
ask
stuff.
for? What else can you ask for?
The
I mean, this
link
is-
to your OnlyFans. That's the Keanu Reeves like softcore porn
That's got to be your
impersonation.
profile picture on your OnlyFans.
Yeah, that's the only way it's gonna get views.
I honestly don't know anything about OnlyFans. I don't know if there's a profile picture, but I'm assuming there is.
I'm sure there is,
Probably.
and I think you know that, Ted.
All right. Moving on.
All right, so Zach looks like
Can we get back into what Bill and Ted are like?
I guess.
Can we? All right.
yeah.
My favorite part about Bill and Ted is that they literally have no character growth. That is like my favorite part of the movie until the very end of the trilogy. Like
Yeah,
the last 30
when they
minutes
allow
of
their
the,
daughters to take the limelight.
yeah. That's like until that point they don't change at all, and it's actually super funny. I really enjoy that aspect of the movie.
The only thing I'd push back with that is this: I would say it gets worse. Like they
get worse? Yeah.
degrade in the second one. They become like worst versions of themselves to only then be even greatly more redeemed in the end. So like just magnified even more. I think the second
too.
one, what they just, and I think it might also be because of the robot versions of them that like they're just like the absolute worst versions of those two characters being totally like exploited beyond what the other two were capable of doing. And it just makes you like hate them even more, I think, as you're watching it. So like it really, it takes away from the poor real Bill and Ted's character because it's essentially them just portraying their worst selves.
Which is
Yeah, but you
actually
still know it's
unfair to
not
them, though, because like
Yeah.
the one redeeming quality to Bill and Ted is, even though they make zero progress throughout their lives other than that last redeeming moment, they're good guys for the most part. And they're like well-meaning and like literally the be excellent to each other. That's something people could actually learn from, even if it's something from a 1989 stoner SoCal rocker movie. I don't know. At least they're good guys, but yeah, if you could put their arc on a curve, it would start here and curve down and then finally back up a little bit when they realize their daughters are the ones that fulfill the destiny.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to talk about how else they progress. You know, it's like there's not a lot of change. You know, like you said, Andy, the real change is in the second movie is not even them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That being said, though, like even though they don't have an arc, still gotta love them. Like the fact that they're
great,
total fucking idiots, but also have these incredibly descriptive adjectives for like everything they say. Like one of my favorite lines, and it was in the synopsis, is "We're in danger of flunking most heinously." It's like, how are these guys flunking? Because they come up with some of the greatest adjectives to describe what they're going through, yet they think Julius Caesar's the salad guy, stuff like that. Joan of Arc is Noah's wife, shit like that. I love all that stuff too. It's just
they think Socrates is Socrates.
Yeah, Napoleon's the dead short guy. I mean,
oh my god. Yeah, I do love their adjective game is top notch. It really is.
Oh yeah,
it's top notch. You can't hate them for that.
Absolutely.
There is one thing you can hate them for, and this does really bother me about the first two movies, and part of the reason why I think like it does drop significantly in quality, but it's the use of a specific homophobic slur that occurs one time in the first movie and at least two times, if not three times, I think, in the second one.
It happens
and then
in
never...
the first movie? Because I totally missed that.
It happens in the police department. The two of them embrace. They hug for a moment, and then as like a second later, they break away from one another, and they both call each other the F slur. So
I totally missed that. The only time I heard that was when the evil Bill and Ted robots throw them off the cliff to kill them, when they say "we love you" in like a desperate attempt to not have them kill them. I'm shocked and disappointed right now. I honestly didn't notice that.
And you might miss them because they're just lines that get thrown out there. And because I mean, I don't remember those being said as a kid, but I also remember as a kid,
Right.
that term was used. I mean, I have said that term before because that's what young boys did, unfortunately. And thank goodness, like I have grown into the adult I am now and learned lessons from childhood mistakes. But that's what, you're seeing on TV. So it kind of makes sense. I see where it comes from now, you know? I
It
get
was
that
super
part.
shocking. Yeah, it was shocking to hear. I mean, I noticed it right away. Is every iterance of that particular word. Because I don't really remember any other words that were super bad, but there was like a lot of hypersexualized misogyny. Lots of just like really dated things that just doesn't play today, and that really jumped out at me, especially in the first movie. Maybe not so much the second movie, but like even Missy, like they were checking out Missy the whole time, and like
Oh yeah.
hypersexualizing the mom. It was really weird. So there are a lot of things that just seem super dated and just really don't play well today, and that's the stuff that really actually stood out to me, because you don't expect to hear that.
Yep.
From
but you don't hear it in
Trilogy.
the third one at all. So that's like I'm gonna say
Well,
this over and over again.
as
The
you can
third one has
expect, yeah.
a lot of redeeming qualities. I was so surprised. Like, not that I was expecting them to say it right. Like, of course they're not gonna do that. They're not gonna. But I was surprised how well. Like, okay, so this movie is a movie of its time. And that's why I'm not thinking like canceling Bill and Ted over the language that they use because they're a product of their time. But good on the third one with Bill and Ted to still give us those characters we know from the first one, the good versions of them in our minds, and kind of really bring them to their fullest.
Yeah, and maybe that's their arc is changing with the times, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah.
And again, like you guys said, any of us would be lying, especially from the times that we were raised. I mean, I was born in 1990, a year after this movie came out, the first one. I'd be lying if I didn't say those stupid things, especially in high school in those times where you're trying to find yourself, you're trying to impress other people, and how do you impress other people? You bring other people down, which is a really shitty way of going about things, but that's really how it ends up going for a lot of people. And good people do that shit all the time. So yeah, definitely don't want to cancel them or anything like that, anything of that nature, but it is good progress to see that you go to the movie in 2020, you jump to that, and the characters seemingly learn from that, the writing learns from that, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, surely. But in that said, though, I certainly, I think you both mentioned you don't want to cancel Bill and Ted, but it's not a movie that initially I thought, oh, this would be a fun movie to see as like a fourth grader with some of the historical figures, the fun time travel, but I won't show this movie to my kid, really just because of some of those aspects of it.
Yeah, well, that's
I
kind of.
wonder.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Ted. I was just gonna say I wonder if because these are I believe it's an MGM production. All three movies. I actually don't know about the third one, but I know the first two are MGM. Disney owns that. That's the Disney owned product. So like if they were ever to bring this to it's not well it's Disney Plus, but it's like the Stars, which is like the
Mm-hmm.
eventually will be the adult section of
Or Hulu. I mean,
or
Hulu is,
Hulu, something like that, another
yeah,
Disney owned. Like theoretically, if they were to introduce these movies to streaming, because they aren't streaming right now,
right.
incidentally enough, right? Coincidence? I think not. It's for like this very reason is that like they don't fit the culture of that company and they're not going to stream it. But theoretically, they could release them and just do some good old George Lucas editing. Super easy to scrub out all of those,
Oh yeah.
at least the terms, the language that's used, and maybe even some of those over sexualized scenes cut around them to clean them up. Like we don't need the shot of looking down. The I'm blanking on her name.
Right,
The
Missy's shirt.
Missy's
Yeah,
shirt, right? You
right,
don't need
right.
those in there. You can easily cut to like a quick thing that happens before and after it. So like I think there's potential for these to eventually one day be worth showing in a better format.
God, that scene was so awful. The scene was so awful with the dad, and then they closed the door behind him.
Oh my
I just-
god, yeah. In Bill's room, by the way. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, it was so
Oh
bad.
man, yeah.
The only redeeming thing about that is in the next movie, you get to see Bill's dad kind of whimpering in the corner while Ted's dad is with Missy at one
So
point.
are we moving on to the dads then, maybe, and characters
Sure,
and stuff like
we
that?
can talk about
them,
the dads.
God, it's
the
so
dads'
bad.
characters.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Missy. Let's talk about Missy. Since
Okay,
we've-
start with
we've
Missy,
already-
and then we
Missy
can get
is
into
the
the
thread that
dads.
brings everything
Yeah.
together in these
So-
movies.
my favorite line, and I know this is, I just talked about how much I hated this stuff, but my favorite line was when Ted was like, "Yeah, remember when she was a senior and we were freshmen? And we asked her to the prom, and now she's his stepdad
Yeah.
or his stepmom."
Yeah.
And he keeps calling her mom throughout the whole
Yeah.
thing. He's like, "Hey, Missy, I mean, mom."
Yeah.
Mom. And that's
then
what
the
she
next
wants him
movie,
to call.
Ted's doing the same
Yeah.
thing. And then you get to the last movie, which is the best way. This is like a good, clean way of sexualizing somebody, I guess, is like just showing how gross it is that his younger brother Deacon is marrying her, and just like the over the top makeout stuff. And it's just so gross and over the top that, like, even if you really wanted to do anything with her, it's just nobody wants to touch her at that point, because she's been through the Bill and Ted families, I guess, and it's just so ridiculous and so disturbing too when you think about, like, the fact that she was Deacon's mom essentially at one point.
Well, in the wedding scene when they
Yeah.
go over all the relationships, like Deacon's his own stepdad, and
Dad's his own son.
and Dad's his own son.
That was one of the
Right.
highlights of that movie. Just like right off the bat at the wedding, just running through all the consequences of Missy running
And now that
through.
we've gone through that beautiful statement, that was really funny.
Yeah,
That
you
was
know
really
what? Without
funny.
Missy, these movies couldn't happen, I don't think.
The
Maybe
I could have gone without the tarot like reading thing, or not tarot,
her
but whatever they're doing.
seance.
The
seance.
seance,
Well,
yeah.
it was plot convenience. It's just like, well, let's make Missy have the seance so we can try to get to somebody. Speaking of, like, that scene, the scene before that, I really enjoyed Ted's dad when he's possessed by Ted, talking to all the
was so
cops
Ted.
and talking like Ted. He did a really good job of doing a Keanu Reeves Ted impression, and I super enjoyed that scene.
That was really funny. Yeah. I like him as an actor in these. Like, I mean, he just has a little, it's kind of a small secondary role, but
Yeah,
he was good.
But
it's the incredulous
he goes through
dad.
character growth.
He does. Yeah.
Yeah. He's one of the few who actually has an arc. But yeah, he plays the incredulous dad so well, just like the dad who's like, "What the fuck, Ted? What is going on here?" It's amazing.
Pack your bags.
Yeah.
He's definitely 100% MAGA though. Like, without a doubt, this man is hardcore. Wants his son to join the military academy. He's in the police. He probably does not support Black Lives Matter. Let's put that out there to the world. Like, this man, we know this guy. We don't like this guy in real life, and that's why we don't like him as his dad. But by the end of the movie or the trilogy, he redeems himself. He goes, "I realize I was wrong. I want to now make up for it. I'm going to help you guys. And conveniently, when you killed me, my SWAT van was here too. So let's hop in the SWAT van and then take this back to, Earth." So, like,
Yeah. How does the
The dad
SWAT
goes through
van go to hell? Can somebody explain that to me?
Well, how does
the
a robot
SWAT
go
van
to hell, Zach? I mean, come on.
how does a robot? How does
Okay, but he's not a robot. What was his name again?
Dennis
I
McCoy.
forgot it.
Dennis McCoy.
Dennis McCoy.
Dennis
Yes.
McCoy.
One of the best
No,
characters. by
he's
the
so
way.
much more than a robot. He's so much more than a robot. He's Dennis McCoy.
Well, yeah, he's named after Kelly's ex, which is a nice little tidbit in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really get that though. I don't know why that was even a thing.
It's a funny line. Why not?
Oh, all right. I thought there would be more.
No.
I thought there would be more significance to that, but
That's pretty
there
much
just never
all
was.
of Bill and Ted is like, It's funny.
Yeah, it
I
provides
guess.
like relationship drama because like between now the mom and the daughter, like there's mom and daughter dynamics. It's like, oh, you named the robot thing you created after my ex. It triangulates the relationship. It gives you something to like do them. That's how like the
just to
Missy
piss
is.
her off. Yeah.
Yeah, Missy's
Right.
a triangulation of characters. Like so you've got the dad with the son, and then now they've got mom, who happens to be like someone that the kid like had a crush on, like in as a friend. Like so, there's all these weird triangles that occur between these characters.
Yeah, and Dennis McCoy at a certain point is desperate for the attention of pretty much everybody, but also Kelly at one point, to the point where she tells him several times to go away. So, it all circles back. She probably is told that to the real Dennis McCoy, and yeah, it's a beautiful circle of life.
Dennis McCoy is easily my favorite character in the third movie.
Leslie hated him.
Funny. Oh, really?
Hated him.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like dying laughing every single fucking line. And she just said he made her so uncomfortable.
That's the point.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, that's why.
It.
That's why you laugh at everything he says because it's so cringe.
Especially because he's a robot too. Like you don't expect it at all. He's like, I accidentally killed your daughters and your band, and, and then he tries to kill himself.
Oh wait, you have the song?
Yes, it's so fucked up. It's so bad. How
goodbye world.
Jump on his gun.
That's towing a line. That is towing a line. But
yeah,
I'm okay with it. Sometimes you got to cross it. Sometimes you got to just.
It is towing a line, but it becomes okay because in the end it's a robot, and that's what
right.
you got to tell yourself.
He is, but he gives himself this character that's like he's more than a robot. Like he gives himself so much more clout than just being a robot.
But is he more than a robot if nobody else cares? Because like the moment he tells everybody his name and anything about them, they're like, who the fuck cares?
It's like, okay, come on.
He tells Bill and Ted, we don't care. Let's go. And he joins them half the time. They're like, okay, fine. Then Death is trying to get rid of him during the concerts. I'm a really good dancer. Why don't you go dance over there? So, yeah. He's just an inconvenience to everybody.
Do you guys want to talk about Death now? Since we just talked to
I love Death.
Can we wrap up with the dads though?
Oh, the dads. Okay. Yeah. What else? I don't really have much to add, so go ahead.
So I just want to, with the dads, circling back to those, tying with like Missy and whatnot. I like to in this podcast do my like simp cuck analysis with male characters throughout this, and I noticed it really in the second one where I always confuse them. So Bill is Keanu Reeves, right?
No, Ted is Keanu Reeves.
Ted is Keanu Reeves. I confuse their characters constantly. Ted is Keanu Reeves. So
how could
Ted's? I don't know. I just don't understand. I've never grasped their name.
Logan.
Ted is Keanu Reeves.
Yes,
Ted is Keanu Reeves.
Yeah. So Bill's dad, all right, is the first person that Missy's in a relationship with, right?
Correct.
First dad, primary dad. We don't really get a good sense of where anyone is at, except for everyone simps over Missy. So he just gets lumped into that simp category, I think, because that's just like what everyone does.
Oh, surely. I mean, he kicks the kids out of the room.
Yeah, like in his kid's room. But
yeah.
So then we go into the next movie and it's solidified. So I'm reassured by the second film that he is a simp because of his reaction to Missy. He's in tears. This man is so depressed over the loss of this woman. Like the shot on his face, the camera tracks it. Like as he's like, it is incredible that this man is the pure definition of a simp. Then we get into, okay, so what's Ted's dad? I don't really know. I think he's probably a little bit of like still on the simp side of things, but just like such a conservative dude. I don't know if like he even wants to have sex actually. Like he kind of like portrays it, but it's like once on Sunday afternoons, after church or something like that. Is the thing going on?
I get that. Yeah.
So probably still like, but simp like, wants to be, but very conservative. Then you get the son, who, what's the brother's name now? I forget him.
Deacon.
Deacon's a cuck. Okay, this kid has several very suggestive lines in the third movie. He's not even a kid, he's an adult, right? But he's a kid because it's her kid messed up. Part of the problem, that's kind of cuckish. He gets off to the whole dad thing. Like, there's a throwaway line, something at the very beginning, which is like, oh, don't call me that pet name. That's what your dad called me. And he says, like, that's the point. Dude, come on. Like, I no shame thrown your way whatsoever, but yeah, that's a cuck.
Yeah, we don't kink shame here, but
No
by
kink
the
shame.
way, the throwaway line, I just remembered it. It's kissy Missy,
Missy.
which is disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't remember that line, and I wish you didn't bring it up. Actually,
Sorry.
No.
I just I can't let it go. There's something about watching movies now where I can't stop thinking about this.
Every movie you watch is going to be through the lens of a simp cuck analysis.
Yeah, it happens now because I like go like, oh, that's funny because I'm in the mind of the podcast and I'm like, oh.
You know what? He's bringing something to the table that nobody else does, and I think that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. That's fair.
Is that all we got
Probably
on the
not a lot of
dads?
that. That's all I got on the dads.
All right.
I mean,
let's
that's
move on
really
to
all they're there
death.
for. Yeah, let's talk
Death.
about death.
Death. Fucking sore loser, baby ass Death. I love Death,
Dude.
though. He's so
Death.
fun.
Death is the best part of Bogus Journey.
Yeah.
Like by
Absolutely.
far the best part. Of
I
Bogus
don't
Journey.
like Bogus Journey pretty much at all until Death shows up.
Yeah.
The only moments that are redeeming in Bogus Journey for me are the moments with Death. I fucking love the line when he's in the grocery store and they're shopping for everything to make the good Bill and Ted robots, and he sees the guy smoking. He's like, "See you soon." Just amazing.
I love. He's so whiny and everything. Like,
Yeah.
and it gets even amplified in the third one when they're trying to like bring him back to the band. But like it starts off by him like losing Battleship. Best 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
Best 3 out of 5. And then Bill Ted's like best 5 out of 7. Damn right. It's just so funny.
Yeah, and then
He
in the
finally-
third one, it's all, oh, you going to pull the restraining order on me?
Yeah.
Well, you were playing 40-minute solos, Death. Which, to be fair, nobody wants to hear even a 4-minute bass solo.
Nobody should have a bass solo.
Jesus.
Shouldn't
Remember,
exist.
Primus was the band that played as the second to last act at
Ah.
Battle of the Bands in this movie. So the fact that
Primus has a bass feature, but they don't have bass solos.
yeah, but you
They
shouldn't be
feature
throwing
bass.
Okay, yeah, that's true. I'll give that. I'll give you
They're
that.
like it's like they're very similar to Red Hot Chili Peppers. They feature bass, but they don't solo bass.
Yeah, it's like you're gonna riff on that bass line for like the first few like opening bars here, and then we're gonna get into the rest of the song.
Yeah, yeah, Primus is some of the best bass material there is. But
Exactly.
they
That's
still
why I
don't
want to
have
make sure we're
bass
not throwing
solos.
shade that way.
No, 100%. You just never want a bass solo unless you have like a cool upright jazz bass solo. But even when he was playing upright bass, it sounded like an electric bass. They didn't really get it together. Their instrumentation was off.
Is that what we're nitpicking?
Hey, this is a movie about music. I'm gonna nitpick the music.
Zach analyzes the music.
That's
I
fair.
analyze the toxic masculinity found in cuck and simp personas.
Yeah,
Oh,
we've
man.
all got our niches.
That's fair.
But back to Death being the best freaking character in the movie. You're like so right that the movie actually gets kind of good when Death shows up. He makes you,
Yep.
you invested in it. And I like him in the second one, but in the third one, he's just over the top. He has way more dialogue than he does in the second one. But I love it because what's so, again, great about this third movie is it recognizes exactly what kind of movie it is and does not take any shame in that, this just kind of goofy movie and these characters. Because, like, the whole Death thing and coming back to the band, you could just replace these characters with any other, like, getting the band back together movie. Like, all right, here's the Beatles coming back together, for the last album. Here's, the Rolling Stones, coming together for like the last, like, whatever the case is, just plug and fill. And then they're just being like satires of that thing. So you got Death and Bill and Ted trying to get the band back together now, making up with one another, and then going out to have one last great show. So like the character of Death even has character development from the last movie. Like, good job, creators of the third one. Make me like the character even more from the second one.
Yeah,
that's he is great.
Interesting thread too, that the tertiary characters have more of an arc than the main characters in this movie, and yeah, good for them.
Well, I mean, it's funny though, like you say that, but I think all of the character growth, no matter which character it is, comes in the last 30 minutes of the last movie. Like everybody is extremely stagnant right until then.
Yeah.
And that's where everything comes together. So yes, it's growth, but it's like it just kind of like, and here's the redemption. For everybody.
But I think that's like
Dad,
part of what
Bill,
makes
Ted,
it too.
Dad.
Like, if they're not sad, stagnant losers at the beginning of 3, then there's no point to the movie. That's the whole plot, is that they're stuck. The princesses are thinking about leaving them because they can't watch them bang their heads against the wall trying to figure out this song. Their daughters look up to them, but obviously they realize that they need help too. That's why they go and find the best band in history. So these guys, like, even though they have their redemption and their like peak to their arc at the end of the movie, it wouldn't happen without that. And that's kind of like goes to Andy's point as to why the third movie is probably one of the better like endings to a trilogy of all time. Like, even though it's not like an epic trilogy or anything like that, just like the way it culminates and everything really works and really, I don't know, it just makes sense.
It does. It makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
You know
that's
what?
The last thing you should say about this trilogy. None of it makes sense.
I think if anything makes sense is stuff in the third. I'm not talking about 2 where we got fucking ass cheek monsters here.
Yeah.
Which, okay,
Yeah, that's
speaking
fair.
of them, I just want to bring this up really quick. Are they suggesting that Kid Cudi is Station?
I don't,
Because he does the
maybe
The
station.
last line. Yeah. Before he teleports away.
Yeah. Like,
Is that like the point of it? Yeah. I mean, he's also the one that like knows all this,
the
knows
space-time
everything.
stuff. So,
Yeah.
like, is he Station or does he just know Station? I really want to know. I'm assuming it's just like as simple as like he's Station and he's taking the form of Kid Cudi, right?
The fact that Kid Cudi is in this movie is mind blowing to me. I love that he's like now a historical musician.
Absolutely.
In the mind. In
And
this movie.
he tells everybody so.
No. No, Ted, that's it. He is Station. Like when he says, I guess Kid Cudi, it's because the kids don't know that it's Station. Station is a historical figure, just not from planet Earth. In fact, Station is literally like the smartest, scientist in the universe, right? That's
Right.
like the whole thing.
Yeah, that's his whole point. Yeah.
So not historically from Earth, but just like historically. So when Kid Cudi says that, he's not just saying like because it's Kid Cudi, he's saying it because it's Station.
He's a Station.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that works.
Yeah.
I like Kid Cudi though. I'm glad he was in it. I think Kid
absolutely.
Cudi's awesome.
He was a bright spot. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't name a Kid Cudi song though. What's one song? Leslie and I talked about this. This was kind of the sad part.
I don't know the names of his songs, but you would know a couple of his radio hits like.
This is great.
It's the best I got.
This is
That's the
great
best I got.
podcasting here. Great
That's the best I
stuff.
got.
Thanks, Zach. That's what I was hoping for. I'll listen for that one next time. Thank you.
What do they have? Don't you have like the thing where you can sing it into? And it'll come up.
Yeah,
What's it called?
You want to sing for the podcast and then
Yeah,
tell us
and I
what
guarantee it won't pick up on what you just put out there.
Wait.
Are we trying this? Are we actually doing it?
No.
Let's fucking do
I'll
it.
give you the name of the song. Jesus.
I think
I'm surprised you.
Great...
Pursuit of happiness. I'm in the pursuit of happiness, and I know.
Oh
No?
yeah. Okay.
So it's
That's like
exactly what you were
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, what you hum.
Okay,
I would.
well,
Google
there's
would've known.
that's a verse. All right. Jesus, you couldn't Google it beforehand.
No, we did.
If anybody's not gonna know a
We
Kid
don't do
Cudi
that
song
shit.
by name, it's me. Like, I know songs just by hearing them, but I don't know who does them.
Yeah.
I am like the definition of just a dad who is not in touch with what's going on in pop culture. I listen to punk rock. That's all I listen to. Literally all I listen to. Punk, hardcore, and prog. And I do not delve anywhere outside of that other than when I'm in the car with my wife.
Yeah,
That's
I
fair.
like pop music. So I like Kid Cudi.
You're hip.
He's fun.
I'm not.
I am hip. That's why I'm still a rocker.
Yeah, as
Can't
evidenced
take it
by
away.
that epic humming, too.
Can't take it away from me yet.
Absolutely.
Any
All
other
right.
characters we should get into, guys, before we like? I don't know.
I mean, we hit Station, which is great.
Yeah.
He's an ass cheek monster and Kid Cudi, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I did not say George Carlin is a great
Rufus.
character as Rufus. And that was one of the things I said while watching the third one was, wow, I'm actually like sad about George Carlin, not seeing him in this movie, because that was one of the redeeming qualities of the first two, was seeing George Carlin again.
Interesting.
Love his comedy, like the man,
I want to.
like his worldview and politics and things like that. So I was like, kind of sad that he wasn't in it. And I like George Carlin. So that's all I got to say about it.
It's interesting you say that, because I was sad when like they did the hologram thing of George Carlin in the third one, but I also thought and I like George Carlin, but I thought in the first two, Rufus could have been played by literally anybody. I don't think he was really George Carlin put anything specific to George Carlin into Rufus. You know what I mean? I was
Agreed.
expecting more from him, actually.
Yeah.
See, I just think it's not like a necessarily an acting thing. I think it's literally, hey, who's like a big name comedian that we could put in this role that would get people to say like, oh, guess who's in this movie? Let's see it. Oh, George Carlin.
I also think it works.
The
from
biggest name at the time.
Yeah. I also think it works from the standpoint of like Rufus is a very much the straight man in Bill and Ted, and George Carlin is like a very smart comedian, but he can get raunchy too. So I think like the expectation is when you see George Carlin's on the bill for this movie is that it's going to be something totally different, and then they subvert that expectation. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think maybe that's part of the intention of it, because they very much like make him the straight man throughout these movies.
I don't know. I just don't think he's a very good actor. I think he's a great comedian, and I just don't think that he delivered on his acting as well as.
That's fair. I do think he was underutilized in the second one, though. I was pretty disappointed that you get him at the beginning teaching his course, then he uses his sick guitar batarang thing that he's got to attach himself to the time
It's so stupid.
phone booth. It is stupid, but it's fun.
All right, let me throw this out there. I bet the reason why is pay. How much time do you get at George Carlin?
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
So like to actually
it's
do
for sure
this movie.
the real world reason, but it's just disappointing that like you get him at the beginning of the movie for that, and you get him revealing that he was the female band manager at the end, and like all he delivers, which is a good line, is that the other guy, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name because I fucked it up earlier in the synopsis, but
Denomalous, right?
Denomalous, sure. So
I think that's how they say it.
yeah. I think I just have a hard time reading it because it's like DE and then anomalous spelled out. Anyway, he says he was his former like gym teacher and
Gym teacher.
sit up champion of the 27th century. Like
That was
such a dumb throwaway line.
that was one of. I love that because at the beginning he's like, oh, teacher.
Yeah.
And you think he's like, oh, it's supposed to be like, his college professor that like, whatever.
Right.
Oh, he's my old gym teacher. Like, oh my God. That's definitely one of my favorite parts
Yeah,
of the
like
movie.
usually it's like he was my mentor, he taught me everything,
Right.
but he lost his way. It's like, yeah, he's just this dude who does a bunch of sit-ups. He's got the record in the 27th century, so that's pretty cool.
That was so
Which that guy
funny.
does not look like he's the sit-up champion, I will say that.
That might have been
No.
like an improv moment from George Carlin. I
Yeah.
bet that was not the line in the script.
might be
and
right.
he just said it, and they're like, "Yeah, we got to go with that take.
Yeah.
We got to use it."
How could you not?
That is so perfect.
You can't leave that for the
God.
blooper reel.
God, I loved that. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of that movie, I don't know if we want to move on from the character stuff at all, but because we're talking about that part, and maybe this is what you're talking about in terms of nightmarish memories, Andy, is the whole like mouth thing where they take with the Bill and Ted robots in Bogus Journey, they like take the mouth and put it over their robot skulls and they open up the chest. Like that stuff was pretty gruesome for me.
Isn't that good practical effect though? I was surprised like how good the practical
Yeah.
effects were in the
It
second
was.
movie specifically. Like as much as like Station is a weird ass cheek monster, the like costume puppet thing for that actually looks really good. And then that scene in particular when they rip the faces off looks really fucking good. I'm surprised. Like they must have had a bigger budget for that movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a lot of fun practical stuff in the movie, like to give it credit for that. It's a good segue right now. I don't know what we're talking about right now, but like we're talking effects and costumes and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so
I mean, you kind of ruined the segue, but
sorry,
yeah, keep going.
I didn't know that's what we were doing, or actually, because you posed the question, are we getting off of character or not? So I didn't know if we wanted to keep going in this way.
But I mean, it was nice and natural until you spoke up. So, but keep it going.
All right, so this is a nice segue into talking about like the practical effects in the second
Great.
movie.
This is great.
Damn it.
You're right though. But you continue your thought.
Thank you. Like the practical effects in this one, particularly the scene in their apartment. There's like all the things going on with like their head. They're playing basketball. The head's not so much themselves, but like what they did with the camera work was really cool. So like the heads of each individual was like in the wastebasket. So like they had the camera looking up and then it was looking down. When the head was on the floor, you could clearly see like it was something that they were in, which was like some kind of like 2-level thing. So it was just like a carpet over Keanu's head, and then there was an actor walking above them. Like cool things like that was like, wow, they put a lot of effort into this scene to make all these practical effects work. So yeah, it was really cool in the second movie. Another redeeming quality, if you will.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, to me, the biggest effect that stood out was the phone booth in all the movies, like in how it appeared, apparated and disapparated sort of thing, like just kind of moving in and out with the the cheesy electronic effects beforehand. But I thought even in Excellent Adventure, like when you saw the phone booth coming up and down from the ground, I thought that was actually, it fit pretty well. It's pretty seamless. You could throw that in a movie today.
Yeah. And
Again, the electricity around it wasn't great, but other than that, it was good.
no, but it's classic late 80s, early 90s electricity stuff, and
Yeah.
it is what it is. We had the same shit with the Back to the Future franchise,
Right.
Right. And that's like the start of like real special effects for CGI in that era. But
I always compare it to Howard the Duck. That's like my basis of electricity for 80s movies. It's Howard
if
the
there's
Duck.
one thing to use Howard the Duck as a baseline for, it's that.
I
Absolutely.
don't know what this baseline is like, so I need to look because I'm not recalling what the lightning
Have you
looks
seen
like.
Howard the Duck? Watch Howard the Duck. It's fun.
A long time ago. I have not rewatched it as an adult, so
We'll get to the Howard the Duck trilogy. Just kidding.
we get to it's part of the MCU, right?
Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
throw 'em
do
into the
an
MCU.
episode where it's just like all non-MCU shitty Marvel movies, like technically
like that.
Marvel properties that are owned at the time by different studios. Blade, X-Men.
That's its own trilogy, and that's
The-
not a shitty movie. So I'm
those
very
shitty
offended you
Fantastic
just said
Four
that.
movies.
Blade is a very good movie,
Yeah,
but
you could do your own trilogy on Blade. Maybe that's not one to include. We'll figure it out. Anyway,
all right, fair enough.
what were we talking about? Practical
Effects.
effects.
I'm sorry. Practical
Effects.
effects.
The costume for Dennis McCoy is incredible in the
Good call
third
out.
movie. Absolutely
call out.
incredible. Like I do think the CGI is fine in the third movie, and I don't think it's like meant to be something groundbreaking or anything like that. It kind of looks like they're in front of a green screen, and that's okay because these movies are kind of cheap from a base level anyway.
I would
But-
imagine it was intended to be a low budget movie. That's
Yeah.
my guess.
And I think like that aesthetic actually works for Bill and Ted because it's like the least serious franchise you could ever think of. But the costume is incredible. I can't even imagine how much time and energy it took to do makeup and put him in that costume every day that they shot that. The costume for Dennis McCoy looks great.
the budget for Face the Music was 25 mil, all in.
No way.
Yeah.
20. How much was Keanu?
20.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. The only really like CGI thing that bothered me in the third one, not even bothered me, but like where I was taken out of the movie for a moment, was when they initially get to the future.
Yeah.
And they're just like looking around. And it's one of those things where like clearly there are no tracking things for their eyes in this green screen room because like the things that Bill is looking at, he's like looking around somewhere like mid eye level and there's like nothing there in the sky where he would be looking when the camera pans around. Like everything out was like further in the distance. So it's like weird. Like, why would you be looking like that? So clearly you're walking through a green screen area that isn't anything practical. So everything else was, I think, fine with it. And then to the point about CGI in the first two, there really isn't a lot of it. There's more practical effects for things, and it's of its time. So I'm not gonna, be too critical of it.
Oh no,
Yeah, you really can't knock
be.
it.
Doesn't make sense to be. Let's see. We've hit effects. I almost want to go back to characters for a second, but like I don't know.
You could splice it in.
You know what? You know what
I
what we didn't bring up with characters, in I guess rightly so because she wasn't in it a lot. But Kristen Schall's character, I was expecting
Kelly?
so much more from. I wanted so much more of Kristen Shaw in that movie.
Who's Kristen Shaw?
I
Kelly,
forget the
Rufus's
Kelly.
daughter.
Oh, Kelly. Yeah, she's a
I love
character
Kristen
actor.
Shaw.
I'm a big Kristen Shaw fan. Love her in Bob's Burgers. Love her in everything that she shows up in. Very unique voice that she has. I love to just hear the voice. Gives me, I don't know.
Oh, she's immediately recognizable.
Yeah.
when she talks.
Yeah, I loved when she yelled at Dennis McCoy to go away because it sounded like Louise Belcher.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Do you like-
and she's just hilarious too. Her comedy specials are amazing.
absolutely.
Do characters like that, like in this case, it's obviously a positive experience, but do they like ever take you out of the movie when it's someone like that? Because I don't necessarily like dislike her, but I don't know a lot of her material. I think I've seen like one of her really stand-up things she's done, and I definitely haven't seen her in other like movies and whatnot, but I know she does them and things like that. So sometimes like when I see someone like that, I might have not necessarily a negative reaction, but it's like, oh, it's here this character reaction again. So like, is that something you guys experience in general, or like positivity like that, or does it ever pull you out of the movie?
It definitely I don't know if it ever, like, in a movie like this, I don't know that it pulled me out of the movie because I was never really fully in the movie. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
How
this is not
dare
like
you.
it's just not like a fully immersive movie, you
No,
know?
I got
Even,
up at one point and like got something to like blow my nose, a paper towel or something. Like I
right. I
literally,
mean, it's that type of movie where you can go refill your drink and like not really miss a beat, you know?
Yeah.
And especially like right from the beginning, like you see old ass Keanu Reeves and it kind of takes you out of the movie immediately, you know? It
Yeah.
from the beginning, it's not like I'm like in the Bill and Ted universe, you know? So when I see Kristen Shaw, it's like, oh yeah, that's Kristen Shaw, and it like, and I'm not thinking of it as a character, I'm thinking it more as an actor, but I don't think it takes away from the movie as it is, you know?
Yeah, and that's probably more of an indictment on the movie, to be honest. But it's not serious. It's not
That's
a
what
big
it's
deal. That's the thing.
correct.
Like
Yeah.
it can't take away, because what is there to take away from? We're just here to have a good time. We're just here to be excellent to each other and to party on, dudes. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I mean, we've gotten into some real heady content.
And we
This
shouldn't.
is not it. This is
No.
like I'm talking about like
Oh,
in the
I thought
podcast,
you.
like
Yeah,
as a
that's
whole, you know,
right.
like you know, we just watched the the Unbreakable etc. trilogy, right? And that, like, breaking that down is a hell of a lot, you know, more into it, you know,
Mhm.
I can't even talk anymore because I love that name. But,
Yeah, that was good. That was
but
quality.
yeah,
That was
but
quality.
you know, this is nothing like that. It's nothing like that, and you have to know what you're getting.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's
and
fine.
she just plays George Carlin too. Like it's literally the replacement character. So I mean,
Pretty
like
much,
it
yeah.
makes sense for me. So like that doesn't bother me at all. That I know that this actor has appeared in other things, and people like that.
Well, that's the thing. If you were bothered or taken out of things by her in this role, then you probably would have been by George Carlin too. So it's like
Yeah,
it's
That's
an
true.
apples to apples comparison. They're both comedians. They're both very recognizable voice and just how they look. So it's just one of those things where like, hey, Kristen Shaw, hey, George Carlin,
Right.
it's fine. That nothing to take seriously. That these movies are just about having a good time.
Yeah.
Maybe other than
No,
two.
it is a fair question though, because there are definitely movies where you can just you see, you know, celebrities making an appearance just to make an appearance, and it's just it totally doesn't fit. You know, I just don't think this is one of those movies.
Yeah. And I
So
don't think Christian Shaw's like that huge of a celebrity either, where it can
right.
really take most people out of the movie. As much as we love her for the most part, not everybody's like, hey, Kristen Shaw, yeah. It's like she's
Right.
just kind of a weird lady with a weird voice, and she's fun.
yeah, that's my
Yeah.
take.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. um, I there's probably not a whole lot else to go over, guys, but I do want to get your. I want to talk about the historical characters in the first one, because it's probably it's my favorite movie of the three, but
Yeah.
I think that's probably like the most interesting part of all three of the movies, at least in my opinion.
Well, could we
So
talk like historical figures with like time travel too? Because they go
yeah,
hand in hand.
Yeah.
absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah, so in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the characters that we meet, we have Napoleon, who, by the way, his whole like side plot is awesome.
Oh, he has one of the best B plots of all time, I think.
I love his side plot in this movie. It's so
Discovering
great.
ice cream, cheating at bowling, which is classic Napoleon. Napoleon complex. Hello.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
and then
so fun.
Waterloo. I love the
Yeah.
tie-in of Waterloo, the water park, which is just fucking
Yeah.
amazing. And he's bullying kids. Yeah, it's a fun time with Napoleon. And you've got fucking Socrates and Billy the
Socrates.
Kid hitting on teenagers, which is problematic, but you don't really think about it too much, I guess. Just like they're at the mall and they're hitting on girls, and I think that's just hilarious. And then Freud comes in with his psychoanalysis of everything, which is just super uncomfortable. They do such a good job of like making this funny and not serious, but also like kind of doing a service to these historical figures and like keeping things relevant to what they actually did and what they were known for.
Yeah, for sure. Like they actually they pull from, you know, their history characters, right? Like, you know, their actual human characters with from what we know from history. So it was a lot of fun. Um,
The time travel piece bothers me with this though. Like I give it
mechanics?
up to enjoy the movie of it, but like you take Abraham Lincoln and he has the most epic speech that only trails the Emancipation Proclamation because of the great ability of what that does to a people, a society and thing. But this speech is supposed to be like the thing that gets Bill and Ted, you know, to be able to pass their test so that way, or the oral history report, so that way they can then go on to become the band that saves the world, the universe, or whatever, right? So like this speech is epic in nature. So why doesn't history change? Why don't like all these historical characters do something? And I get it, that's like kind of the point. You have to suspend your disbelief for these movies, but it's like the whole point is they travel in time to change, you know, the events of time. So like, why don't these people in the past know anything?
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
but we also have to like understand like they literally use time travel to do whatever they want, right? Like
Yeah.
they use time travel to put the keys where they needed them to be. You know, they use time travel to like, and it's just, oh, we're gonna think of it right now, and then it's gonna happen. Like,
Yep.
you know, so it's just a silly mechanic.
Yeah,
You know
it's
that.
just a MacGuffin for the silly movie, and it's not supposed to be taken too seriously. But if you want to get serious about it, just my thought immediately went to like, okay, Rufus has to go back in time to keep them on their path, but that means that Rufus in infinite timelines in an infinite time loop does
Right.
this all the time because you continuously see him talking to the Bill and Ted of the present, and then the Bill and Ted of the near future come and tell them a few things, and then they go and right after Rufus says, just making sure you guys are good here, good to go, and it's the same thing happening over and over and over again. So like the time travel mechanic makes no sense at all because it's like the chicken and egg theory, which is the one that happened first, because if you're going to have the infinite time loop, then something had to have happened first, and then in that reality things are pretty fucky. But at the same time,
That can almost be explained though, because like
okay,
we're only following the perspective of the Ted and the Bill and Ted's that we're following, right? So yes, there's an infinite time loop, but this only happens in each and every Bill and Ted's individual perspective, right? Like
sure.
it was always going to happen, but Rufus isn't like his existence isn't just going back and, you know, through time, you know, every 10 minutes or so to whatever,
Is
you know.
it not
We're
though?
only we're only yeah, no, because we're only seeing it during the Bill and Ted's perspective. You know, so
Yeah,
it's a different
Zach's
iterance.
right. Zach is right, but only from when you take that perspective. But that's not the case because we, as the third party, we're another perspective in this. We see the scene that Ted is referring to, the part where the two of them interact, where Rufus interacts with one and interacts with the other. So we understand that this series of events has already happened. We can play out everything and it's confirmed in that scene that things have already happened. So they've gone through this already. So theoretically, it should be an infinite loop. It should be continuing over and over again where they see this because we, as the third party, we see that thing happening. So you're right in the case when it's Bill and Ted. From their perspective, time isn't infinite. It's only the one timeline things are doing, and it's different for them, and it's only gone back in time once. But we know that's not the case because we're third party viewers to the
No,
perception of time.
I understand what you're saying, but like in each and every individual timeline, this only happens once, right? There's an infinite amount of timelines, but this only happens one time per timeline because we're seeing the perspective of that Bill and Ted. So we're following one Bill and Ted, and we see them we see it when they initially see the Bill and Ted from the future, right? Because it was always going to happen that way, and then we see them when they go back to their original Bill and Ted's, but we're still seeing it from that Bill and Ted's perspective. So this is just one iteration of the timeline and one iteration of Bill and Ted, and but it's all in the individual perspective,
Yes.
right?
I don't know if that's how it works, but I don't know if how much we want to
I
get
don't
into
I don't think anybody
the
really
time
knows
and
how it works.
physics of Bill and Ted.
I'll say one more thing, and the thing that I always get hung up on, and it's not even a real hang up because I'm like just forcing myself to think about this again, because like when we do this podcast, we think about things way too much. But when I watch these movies, I'm like, yeah, who gives a shit? But again, like, does any of this happen without Rufus's interference? That's my thing. Because if he's supposed to keep them on track, what are the events that put them off track, I guess? Like, they never explain at any point, like, oh, well, this happens in this timeline in order to kind of set them off their course. And I have to make sure, I have to go back in time to make sure that they stay on their course. I have to help them along their way. Instead, it's literally just Rufus continuing this time loop, essentially, and going back in time and making sure that they get the time machine. If not for
but
that,
it's only once. It's only once. It's only in one Rufus's perspective.
No,
it is only
no,
once, but
because-
they make it sound like it's a thing that they're helping prevent catastrophe from happening.
But it was always going to happen. It was always it's a destiny thing. It was always going to happen like that. So whatever, Rufus has
So
thought
Ted
about
is
this through
Neo.
the whole time. Ted is Neo.
And Keanu
No.
is both Ted and Neo.
But think of like other examples of this of time travel that so they were always going to create the song that brought the universe together, right? It was always going to happen, but even up to the very end, they didn't know how it was going to happen. And then they realized, oh, it's our daughters that are going to do it. So all of this is destiny. It was always going to happen. Rufus was always going to go back. He's already gone back in other timelines.
So that's why it needs
right?
it's going to happen in an infinite amount of times. Though you just said that because it has
in
to
different
happen.
timelines. In different timelines, not an infinite amount of times.
We don't have confirmation that there are multiple timelines though in this. There seems to be only one timeline.
I think we do have confirmation that there are infinite timelines, because in the third one, they press the infinite timeline button, essentially, and they go to infinite timelines
Right.
and infinite places in time and space to distribute instruments.
I thought that was just not going because it's just all one timeline and they're going to infinite number of places in time.
That's part of it, but I also think it's also infinite places in time and space.
Because that means that there would be instances of places where they don't do it because
Sure.
there are infinite possibilities. That's why it's probably not good to think about the timeline of this, because like at least Marvel maybe like tries with the physics and understanding of it. This one literally has no, like, Kid Cudi is spewing nonsense when he's talking about things. Like he's just saying physics words, and one character acknowledges it. It's actually like breaking the fourth wall, kind of like, you're just saying nonsense right now, and like he ignores it and like keeps going on or whatever. So like I don't know if we can actually analyze this, guys.
No, of course not. Of course not. There's no
Well,
real rhyme or reason
Think about
to
this. Are we destined in infinite timelines to overanalyze this on the podcast?
Probably.
Well, I
would
think
bet
that's for
money on
sure.
that.
That's for sure.
All right.
Let me say something about the trilogy though with this. So the movie 1 and movie 3 use the timeline phenomenon with this. Movie 2 does something a little different because it's not time, but it's dealing with like the afterlife. So you have like hell characters in there and like heaven characters in there. So I like that, how you get like the devil, God, you get these demonic creature things that we see. You get all the people in heaven. I'm pretty sure one of the people you see is Ben Franklin, Albert Einstein. They don't explicitly say it in the movie, but I think that's like what the characters are supposed to be. Yeah. And then you see the greatest people, or the smartest, most intelligent scientist is Station. So I like that part of it. Like, it introduced a new element. And then the third one, to its credit, takes the timeline stuff and heaven and hell and puts them both there for us.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And in the third one, we also see, given timeline, we see the different Bill and Teds, right? So we see the Bill and Ted and Dave Grohl's house.
Yes.
With it.
Great scene. Great
So
scene.
probably one of my favorite scenes in that movie.
What are you doing in my house? Closes the door.
Why do you have British accents? Well, we summer in medieval Britain.
So like those are the different timelines,
No, it's the same timeline. That's the point, though. It's literally like what's going to happen to them. So like the future and the past versions of themselves are in this constant battle because they know the next thing that's going to happen. So they keep like saying like they're going to try to do something different, and like it doesn't work out. Like in that specific Dave Grohl moment, they're in the hallway together and they were like, damn, I was hoping they weren't going to do it this time. And like they prepared for it. So like, we'll get him in the next time. And then they see him in jail and they're like, yeah, we were planning for this. We knew you were going to show up again at some point here because we remember going through this and we're going to get you this time. Like, we're going to stop you. And then the intervention is the robot, apparently, who stops that from happening. And then we see them on their essential deathbeds, I guess, at the end of their lives. And they're like, yeah, here, we got to give you the thing so you can, realize, but you're ultimately just going to get broken so that you can put the pieces together and see that, oh, it's your kids who need to actually do this thing to save the world. So it's like, it's the one timeline and they're experiencing these things together subsequently as we're watching the plot of the movie.
I think it's a different timeline because it happened differently than it will happen in this timeline.
No, it's happening exactly how it's supposed to be. Literally, that's the point. Like, they get to the end. It couldn't have been any other way. It had to be this way.
It's all fucked up.
I think the only thing that makes less sense than all of this is us talking about it all.
It's very true.
Probably.
We got to stop talking about this. But before we stop talking about it, the other thing that happens with the other thing that happens with time is the princesses, right? In the third movie, they have to go through and like they go to all these different times and see, if they'll ever be suitable, if Bill and Ted will ever be suitable to live with for the rest of their lives. And we didn't really talk about the princesses' characters.
No, we ignored the babes. But
the
to the timeline,
babes.
the timeline piece though, they answer that question. So you bring them up and they tell us, because they say which timeline, which because it's one timeline, and they go, okay, which time do you like prefer? When is the time that works for us? And they go, it's the present. It's when
it's
now.
our original
right now.
timeline here, outside of the fact that we were pulled out of 1409 England, whatever. Yeah, and that's also shown in the fact that you see the elderly princesses going back in time using the present Bill and Ted's time machine when they're talking to the elderly ones, because essentially they have lived through the lives of being with Bill and Ted. So, like, out of curiosity, it seems they're going back in time to find out if there is a timeline that makes more sense for them, but ultimately they find it's that one, and that's another infinite time loop, though.
Yeah, because it gets back to the question. So if they were inevitably going to get there anyways, then it shouldn't have happened. It's like, so why does it keep going through this? Because it means it's happening an infinite number of times.
Yep. And they have to guide the present princesses in that path because they have that question. So, yeah.
These movies are fucked up.
Yeah. They shouldn't be analyzed like this. They shouldn't be.
Yeah, I know.
But that's what this podcast does.
We're doing a bad thing right now. We shouldn't be doing this. Let's end the podcast. 10 episodes. That's it. We're done.
You decide. Leave us a comment on the Apple podcast thing or whatever. Give us a review and tell us in a 5-star review why we shouldn't go into these deep analytics.
And don't tell us to stop. Please.
Yeah, don't tell us to stop. But just tell us why it's a bad idea.
Don't give us a 5-star review and tell us we suck and that we need to stop, because that would give me a bunch of different emotions. Well, I think we've beaten time travel to death.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else we want to hit on here? I mean, I think we've hit pretty much all the characters. I was going to say like Thea and Billy, but they're just female daughter versions of Bill and Ted who fulfill the destiny, essentially. And that's really all you can say. I don't want to minimize them at all, but they're really just their father's daughters, essentially.
Updated to be Zoomers, though, and I think
Yeah.
they do a great job. There's like, you could say, some gender ambiguity with Thea, I think. I don't remember. Maybe, she's pulling off like more not totally feminine clothing.
She's wearing like
It's
a
more gender
swimsuit,
neutral.
which is kind of weird. Or no, which one? Which one's
Yeah, I
Thea
think
and
that's
which
the
one's
one.
Billy? See, this is really confusing because I think
Black hair, blonde hair. Which one?
I think they name
Black hair.
the
Oh, the
opposite
opposite?
That's Billy.
daughter.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Billy. Okay, so Billy is the one I'd say. More androgynous.
Okay.
Who was the other one? Margot Robbie.
It's a Margot
No.
Robbie lookalike.
No.
She looks just like her.
That's what Leslie said.
Oh my god!
I know it's not
I couldn't
Margot
believe
Robbie, and I was in the IMDb looking up who was who earlier. I recognize the other girl, the brunette from the Netflix show Santa Clarita Diet.
Oh,
She's
never
in
saw that.
good plug for that show.
Yeah, for that show that had 2 seasons and was canceled.
really good,
Unceremoniously,
though,
by
right?
the way. It was actually a decent show.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
heard really good things about
Yeah,
that.
fuck you, Netflix. Sponsor us, though, also.
That's
Yeah.
a good one for the future.
Maybe they like that kind of attitude. I don't even know.
I doubt it, but maybe.
You know? Well, you know what? They greenlight everything. Maybe they'll greenlight us. Maybe they'll give us a show.
It could
maybe.
happen. Could happen.
Maybe.
Anyway,
What do you
who's
think,
this
guys? You want
actress?
to
did
rank
this thing?
these movies?
Yeah, let's just get out of here and rank these things. Who wants to go first? Andy?
I'll do it. So, ranking the Bill and Ted trilogy. So, oh boy, I've been thinking about this one a lot, actually, and I'm feeling good about this decision. I'm gonna go 3-1-2.
You're gonna hot take this
And-
bullshit.
Okay,
I just
thank you.
think that's a
So,
shit take.
3-1-2, but it's one of those things where 3 and 1 are like right next to one another, and it's only because of probably recency bias right now, maybe because it's the one, because we watched them in order, so it's the last one I watched. I just am thinking about it more, and I actually really liked it. I really enjoyed it. So if I'm just gonna give an honest opinion of how I'm ranking these movies, I actually really liked 3. 1, a nostalgic movie that I will remember fondly as a child and think back of now as an adult and laugh and then cringe at some things. And number 2, I'm kind of sad I remember some stuff, but you know what? I'm glad I went through it for the podcast. So like there were some really good moments in there to talk about and watch. So I think to rank them, it's tough. And if you're gonna ask me my opinion on how I'm gonna do it, just how I'm feeling right now, 3-1-2.
Okay.
Who's next? Who's got a better shit take than mine?
I don't know. That's a pretty shit take, but no, I'm just kidding. I just don't. So my ranking would go 1, 3, 2. And in 3 and 2 for me would kind of be is similar to yours, but on the back end. You know, they're like like 3 and 2 were both pretty bad for me. Though again, I mean, there are definitely moments in there like I laughed a lot in 3. You know, that's probably why I put it over 2. It was really funny. You know, I there were a lot of really funny moments in that movie. But I didn't necessarily like it as a movie necessarily. You know, and 2 is not that good for me. Again, some funny moments in there. Death was great, you know, but outside of that, not awesome. But 1 is just, and maybe it's the nostalgic factor, but it's just such a fun, you know, silly, goofy movie with, you know, old Keanu Reeves and all these, you know, crazy historical characters. And I love number 1. And that one I would rewatch again and again. I probably wouldn't watch the 2 and 3 again. You know, I think number 1 could stand on its own any day.
That's fair. I'm gonna have the same rankings as you, but I'm gonna differ in 3 and 2 being closer than 1 and 3. I'm closer to Andy on that. I think it's really hard to beat 1 from a nostalgia factor, from just being obviously the original one. Always for me, when you're the original movie and you're pretty good, it always gets a little bit of a bump for me, because without it, obviously, none of this exists. But on top of that, it's just fun. There are great jokes. I was really surprised at how much I was laughing at 1 after how many years of not watching it, and like how old it is. Like it's a year older than me, which is crazy to think about. And I'm still laughing at the thing. Just fun humor. It's dopey, it's dumb, but man, it's just a fun time. I will say it brings it down a little bit for me, realizing that you guys noticed some derogatory terms that I just didn't even hear, and I'm not even going to go back and look for them. I'm just kind of disappointed. It's like I'm disappointed more than I am mad, just to find that out. Because I just didn't notice them. Maybe I was taking too many notes. A lot of notes for this episode for sure. Not really. I just think I might have been looking down at my phone. But 1 is just a classic, and then you get to 3. 3's a great time, and it's solid, and I think it's a good culmination of everything. It takes all the best elements of 1 and 2, which for 2 you really have to pick apart the best elements of, and that's death. Death is the best part of 2, and nothing comes close. Station is weird, and it's a thing, I guess, but it's not something that really works for me, other than like the reveal that Kid Cudi's Station that we just find out. 2 is rough and weird and kind of trippy. It feels like a fever dream. 3 is just a fun, good culmination of everything. It's a really good send-off of a series. Hopefully there's not like Billy and Thea's stupendous soiree. I don't even know. But yeah,
Maybe.
1, 3, 2. And I think 1 and 3 are closer than 2 and 3.
All right. I think we're all a little bit different on this one. That's okay, though.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. That's what makes
no one said 2. And then we know you're a psychopath.
Nobody said 2. Yeah.
If you say 2, you've got some issues. Well, to wrap things up here, let's talk about what we're doing next. We've got a couple things down the pike here.
Got a couple things coming up, boys.
Yeah, so I don't want to get ahead of ourselves with a few things, so I'll only announce 2 right now.
We got a surprise in the works too.
I guess,
that's right.
Because I don't want to get way too ahead of ourselves. I think it's an ambitious thing a little bit as far as like our time and devoting it to it. So let's just go with the things that we know we're going to do for sure.
I like it.
But the first thing is we're going to do kind of like a bonus mini-sode, I guess, of a revisit of the DCEU, which was our first episode ever, DCEU, and makes sense. Snyder Cut's coming out tomorrow night / Friday morning, I guess, and that's a 4-hour fucking commitment that I really don't want to make, but it's one of those things where you just kind of have to rip the Band-Aid off and say, well, is it better than Justice League? And the answer is probably like a little bit, and it's not worth 4 hours, but we're going to find out together. And on top
to know this, by the time this comes out, it will have already been out. So if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it and then watch our episode.
Absolutely. And, revel in the pain of watching something for 4 hours that you inevitably in the back of your head knew really wasn't worth it, but that's okay. We're all doing it.
It'll be worth it.
The other one,
I know, man.
We're also going to watch Wonder Woman 84 because that's the other DCEU movie that has come out since we did our first episode. So, we're going to hit that one up too, but that's not going to be as painful as far as time. So that's going to be a mini episode, kind of like in between kind of thing that's going to come out. I don't even know. I'm not going to say. But after that, to celebrate May the 4th, we're big Star Wars guys. We've been really ramping up for this. We've been looking forward to this. And we've been discussing how we're going to do this. And it sounds like we're going to do the prequels for Star Wars. So we're going to kind of split it up into trilogies. And we're going to hit up the prequels. We're going to do this chronologically here. Andy suggested doing the Clone Wars movie. I don't know about that. We're going to have to discuss that.
Skip it.
Skip it?
Skip it.
All right.
I'm good. Keep it to the Skywalker saga with the prequel movies.
Yeah. So fuck that animated movie. If you want to watch it,
episodes 1, 2, and 3.
That, go for it. And you know, that's not to disparage the series. The series is pretty good once you get to like season 5. But anyway, yeah, it's Skywalker Saga, episodes 1, 2, and 3, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, which is everybody's favorite, and Revenge of the Sith. Almost said Return of the Sith. Kind of cross streams there. So
it works.
Yeah, we're gonna celebrate Star Wars the best way we know we can, and we're excited to do it. We're big Star Wars heads, and can't wait to talk about that. Speaking of Star Wars, Zach hosts a podcast called Sacred Jedi Texts, something that Luke yells in The Last Jedi. And it's a great podcast that Andy and I have joined him on, and we cover the first 2 books. Yeah, sounds kind of boring. Not really, especially if you listen to it, because you don't have to read the books. We break down the books that are 14 plus hours long. If you listen to the audiobook, we break them down in 2 hours or less, maybe 3 hours or less, depending on the episode. But
we'll hedge our bets. We'll go 3 hours or less. Yeah.
We're giving you the cliff notes of these books. So if you're into the extended material in this new Disney canon, especially exploring a new era in Star Wars that's not been explored, it's not the old Republic that everybody wants to get back to, which, spoiler alert, might get to at some point. Listen to episode 2, Into the Dark. But we're just excited to talk Star Wars. It's all of our like greatest passion as far as fandom goes, and we'd love for everybody who listens to this to join us in that. So give that a listen. There's a YouTube. It's a podcast audio version as well. So give that a like and subscribe. Everything you can do for that. And just follow us on everything. So that's also the Twitter for that is at Sacred Jedi Text. No S, correct?
No S. Somebody took the S, but yeah, at Sacred Jedi Text.
Yeah, and if you can, dox the guy who took the S. Anyway,
that would be great.
Yeah, so follow us on that if you're interested in any of that, and catch us on the next one, I guess. Next 2, because we've got a bonus episode, and nobody pays us for this, and we're giving you extra content. Who could ask for more?
I bet that's Pablo Hidalgo's like burner account.
That would make sense.
Maybe it is.
That would make sense. Well, in that case,
guys.
I guess don't dox him. But anyway, thanks for joining me, guys. I had fun. Hope you guys did too.
Be excellent to each other.
And party on, dudes.
69.